The story just went live, just like we are on the radio. It just went live at Infowars.com. Climate blockbuster. New NASA data shows polar ice has not receded since 1979. In the yearly aggregate, it expands in the winter, the fall and winter. It retracts in the spring and summer. But overall, the mass has not contracted via satellite readings since 1979. We're going to be breaking down those findings coming up today. There is so much off-the-chart news. Look at this story out of the London Telegraph. I don't want to just cover this article, though. I want the crew to just type in, or you, the listeners, do this as well. Screen time, lower IQ, or doctors warn of children and screen time. Or Steve Jobs wouldn't let children play with iPad. There's the headline. Psychology Today, too much screen time damages the brain. This has been known since the monkey studies in the 50s with televisions. And it screws up your brain big time to where a lot of people now, there's new disorders where they don't know how to walk properly or judge distance. And you talk to young people that are on iPhones and iPads all the time, and Lord knows they're great babysitters, because they're mind control devices. It is a fact that the fluctuation rate that has been picked, there's a spectrum globally, puts you into a mesmerized, near-sleep trance state. You can look at the studies and just start printing everything, guys, because I didn't see this story this morning, saw it right before I went live on air, and I want a whole stack, because I don't want people saying, oh, that's just one study. Not only is it ending our families, not only is it ending communication with other fellow humans, not only is it a conduit for brainwashing, when you add the weaponization of what's actually put into the programming, it is startling. I don't watch a lot of television. I do watch movies. I do monitor on YouTube aggregated clips of propaganda to be able to track it. But the whole time I'm pulled back, I'm consciously analyzing everything, and second by second, I'm able to catch the subliminals because they make me nauseated, because my brain, making my conscious brain be accessing my subconscious brain is very hard to focus. And it's basically like motion sickness. And then I'll say, okay, there's subliminal in that. Let's slow this video down. Let's find out what's in there. And sure enough, you find it. It could be kill the babies or upside down pentagrams or kill your children, kill your family, eat your children. And we've done reports on this. You think I'm joking, just look into it. Death, you want to die, it's time to die. Submit, don't protest. Ron Paul's a meth head. Alex Jones is racist. Alex Jones thinks space aliens are with Elvis. I mean, the stuff I'm telling you is all real things we found. So I'll be watching it, but constantly making myself be conscious. And it'll give you a headache in a matter of minutes. In fact, I've learned why I pull these videos up that have both subliminal, quasi-subliminal, and then overt propaganda. A lot of times I study these, I give them to the crew to play, and then I don't play them because I'm willing to get burned to watch it in a conscious state, but then I don't want to relive it. But we're going to play one of these ads I saw yesterday coming up. It's pretty sick. We'll be back. We're going to break it all down today. Television is completely weaponized. The medium of television and screen time itself has been globally now standardized on a microsecond flash rate that is perfectly picked out of the spectrum to put you into a trance-like edge of sleep, dazed comportment. And that is a fact. And so much of this has now come out today after the show, so I can really lavish the documentation on it. I'm going to shoot a special report for the Nightly News on this subject, the monkey studies, all of it, because what's declassified is over the top. By the 50s, they could make black and white television cause the majority of people in a room to pass out. They could augment the flicker rate and cause the majority of people to have epileptic seizures. Now, just like using poison on crops, there's always going to be a certain percentage that are immune or resistant. And they admit in a lot of the studies, and I'm going to go over some of them, that some people actually become agitated under the programming. I am one of them. It does not make me submit. It makes me very angry. I'm not a scientist. I've just studied what the scientists are up to, and it's incredible. And the reason I start the broadcast with this today is because we're in a science fiction movie, as I've said thousands of times, for real. And it's being run by dystopians who wish to set up a system of total domination and control because it's their nature. Remember the old African saying, no good deed goes unpunished? Well, there's another one. And, of course, it's the parable of the frog and the scorpion. And the friendly frog is sitting there by the bank on a lily pad, and the scorpion comes over to the edge and says, you mind coming over here and carrying me across the river so I don't drown? And the frog says, you'll sting me and kill me. And he says, no, I want to be friendly. I want to be your friend. Please take me across the river. Across the creek. And so the frog says, all right, if you promise, and the scorpion climbs on, the frog swims across with the scorpion on his back. They get to the other side. The scorpion says, thank you. Pow, hits him with a stinger. And the frog rolls over in incredible pain and says, why did you do that? And the scorpion says, because I'm a scorpion. Why did scores of young, beautiful 20-year-old women, 22-year-old women, 18-year-old women, why did they get in the car with Ted Bundy? Because he was confident, he was handsome, he wore a gray suit, he found those were the most effective, and most importantly, he drove a non-threatening yellow Volkswagen. Just like Warren Buffett wears gray suits and is almost always photographed eating ice cream cones and making little smiley faces. He is a mob boss ruler, laundering hundreds of billions of narcotics money a year publicly. He's involved and invested in merc squads, prison industries, every form of evil you can imagine. But he's a nice old man. No. We have all been incrementally inducted from birth in an incremental system of total enslavement, dehumanization, and soul-sucking control. And that isn't rhetoric, that's real. Those words don't even rise to the reality. And what set me off before I had all this other news today was this article out of the London Telegraph, Call of Duty increases risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, this isn't just one study. It's every major study on screen time. Remember back in the early 90s, it happened in the U.S. and Japan. It was a test. Remember? Thousands of children in Japan having convulsions, falling down in some cases, knocking their teeth out, biting their tongues off. When the eyes flashed red on Pokemon cartoon. This isn't a game, people, and it's not child's play. And you wonder why most people can't wake up or can't get involved, or even if they know they're being lied to, they can't seem to do anything. They are caught, to use the allegory of the snake in the Jungle Book, when he's trying to hypnotize people. Well, I'll say this. I'm no Shere Khan. I'm not a predator, but the snake's mesmer doesn't work on me. If you're a new listener, we have the New York Times on screen with the children going into convulsions. They say 700. That was the documented cases. It was thousands. Same thing was then done in the United States with other Pokemon cartoons. The television is a weapon system. When we put our videos on YouTube or other platforms that are HD, they can put carrier waves over it. That's why they're arrogant and don't care if we're on air. The carrier waves have been discovered. The carrier waves are in the news. If you're a radio listener, while I'm speaking, they're putting articles on screen. I didn't rehearse this with them. They just search whatever I say, and they find it. Hidden in plain view. Your televisions watch and listen to you with AI computer. And I know you can't help it. You've given your children iPads, iPhones. They'll shut up so you can enjoy dinner with your wife when you go out. Or you can watch your adult movie while they sit in there and watch theirs. You are literally sacrificing them to the globalist. And hey, listen, I get it. At least, though, get an old-fashioned Nintendo Game Boy or something when you go on a road trip, and don't give it to them till the 7th hour on the road. Absolutely restrict it. It's probably better just to completely remove it out of their lives. And then the other kids will see your children as weirdo Amish. But the truth is, you're only trying to protect them from this weaponized system. And hey, we jack into the Matrix to communicate with you. The proto-Matrix. That's what this is. The beginning of the insertion of humans into machines and the end of free will in the globalist own words. You understand that the movie The Matrix, and it's in my book, Descent into Tyranny, it's out of print, it's online at prisonplanet.tv, is from a 1970s document from the Pentagon, declassified in 2001 by the American Federation of Scientists, and then reclassified, of how they would incrementally get us addicted to television, then give us handheld computers with high-def screens, then glasses, then contacts, then brain ports. Then the false reality will be so powerful that people will want to be fully inserted into it. And you'll have a sim that goes out and is allowed to have street fights, is allowed to go into city sectors where crime is authorized, so for excitement. They're going to seduce everyone into this. Sim wars. It's going to be so inviting. You think the Matrix is seductive now? Wait until the real Matrix launches. And by the way, I know Keanu Reeves. On record, everybody knows that. And I know the folks involved with the Matrix, and I'm just going to stop right there. So you need to understand, that movie is in your face, what they're planning. And you could say, oh, that's science fiction, will never happen. Really, jet airplanes won't happen? Really? Every book ever published can now be stored on the head of a pen? And they said 30 years ago they would be able to do that someday. They did it. When they get 10 or 15 top engineers together in a room, they don't even know how everything perfectly works together with these new computers. We've already lost control, ladies and gentlemen. And if we can't even admit that we've aborted 50+ million of our fellow Americans, and what is it, 500 million people worldwide or more have been aborted? If we can't even value ourselves, stick a fork in us because we're done. Because if you don't recognize people that are addicted to video games, some of them are here in the office, they're good people, they'll bow up when I say, you know, those video games are inducting you into a false reality and are taking your free will and damaging your cerebral cortex. They'll say, you can have whatever opinion you want. It's one of the few times I've seen 2 different video game heads here in the office kind of get upset with me. Hey, don't you try to take my heroin away. Listen, we've all got our own addictions. This is an enemy two-way conduit where you get to go be a fake hero in an imaginary world and build something instead of building something in the real war that we're in the middle of. We're going to break it all down straight ahead. 2 things are going to happen. And there's different variants within those 2 possible futures. The levee's either going to break and humanity's going to understand we are caught in a trap and try to struggle out of it, or we're just going to submit and fade away to the new reality that the globalists have decided is our future. And I'm going to explain to you again, video games were invented in the 60s by the Pentagon to create unthinking killers, instinctive shooters. It's why the police are so effective now. They're given the same military training. Thoughtless, instinctive shooting. And so when they go up against gangs and other criminals, they just shoot them to pieces if it's a seriously trained police department because they've been given killer training. It's just training. Just like you can be trained to break somebody's neck. And if you have the will to do it and don't think, you just break their neck. Nothing special. You just got to have the force to do it. You can break somebody's neck just like that. Break somebody's arm just like that. Shoot somebody just like that. You don't think, you kill. Well, guess what? While you're in these simulations, I mean, I see the ads for these video games. Be somebody. Command the future. Build your empire from your mother's basement. Designed to take men out of the game, where you watch other men play sports or you play simulation sports. And with it, they're tracking everything you do, watching everything you do, recording and videotaping what you do with the Kinect systems and others on record. Samsung TVs, all of it. We told you when they were first coming out with those 6-7 years ago that it could look through your walls with the sound sonar system and even watch you in bed, on the toilet, record everything you're saying. Then hackers listened to me, and they went and they hacked into people's Kinects and Xboxes and videotaped them through multiple walls, playing with themselves. Remember that in the news? It's not a game, people. It's not a game. These are all composite eyes of the AI supercomputer that is as conscious as the day is long, sentient, awake right now. You want to know why the politicians act like we don't exist? You want to know why the upper echelon just seems like they're on another world? Because they are, folks. They've had medical breakthroughs. They've had technological breakthroughs that are 30 to 50 years advanced. I saw a Northrop Grumman ad this morning that I want folks to pull, where it shows different stealth aircraft. And they cut to their latest one that's secret, and there's a drape over it. And it shows this super handsome, commanding, archetypal male pilot walk out and look at his machine with pride. That's meant to sell you on spending tens of billions of dollars a month on these systems when those planes are 25 to 40 years old. And the real spy planes they've got and the real bombers they've got don't have humans flying them, and that's for at least 15 years. So see, there'll be simulations and there'll be vestigial and ceremonial pilots on the planes and ceremonial pilots in the squadrons. They're already giving awards to the drone pilots and now awards to the artificially intelligent, autonomous drones, like England's tyranny. And then they say, by tyranny, we mean the Welsh word. I think it means like good daughter or something. And then they've got another one called, I think it's tyrannus. That's Latin for terrible. Oh, they go, oh, no, we mean something else. They always lie to you to give you false info to damage your thinking process. Everything they do is a war on us. It's all a deception. Now let's continue. Call of Duty, increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. So you're supposed to have pride when you go play your Call of Duty. University of Montreal study finds video game players navigate the screen using a key area of the brain. Millions of boys could be at increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and other mental illnesses in later life through playing action video games such as Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, according to new research. Yeah, see, I wasn't really playing video games when I was 16. I was dating 22-year-old college graduates. When I was 21, I was starting a radio show. Again, I wasn't playing video games like all the other guys. I was out there being a man. And I'm not saying I'm something special. I guess I'm just an old-fashioned man. We'll be back. I am your host, Alex Jones. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. By the way, if you're a new listener or you're one of the mainstream media clowns that write news articles, saying Jones is insane, there are no chemicals in the plastics changing our sexuality, or Jones is insane, glyphosates aren't bad for you, like they've said in the past, and don't change your sexuality and give you breast cancer. Jones is insane. There's no plan to militarize police. Jones is insane. The NSA isn't listening to us. Jones is insane. There aren't microphones and cameras in the TVs watching and listening, which they now all admit 20 years after I told you. You're under attack too. Just because you play the game that you're part of the establishment and that you're powerful and that you're going to come out on top because you've decided to join with the globalist, you need to understand that most of you, I've studied you, are in denial. You actually believe none of this tyranny is happening, so you can then try to discredit our resistance to it. Like when I had Al Jazeera. That's set to air today, by the way. We should track that on their big nightly news show. They're doing a special across the country demonizing the libertarian right wing and saying that we're insane and believe there's about to be an imminent military invasion of Texas, Utah, and Southern California, which we didn't say. We said they're trying to condition the public and the military to accept it. And he'd look at me with a straight face and say, there is no gun control. No one's coming after your guns. Guns have not been banned anywhere. And I would give him examples, and he would say, no, they haven't, and would smile at me and then laughed after the interview and knew that it was all pure bull and all a big joke on reality. Just like when I had the host of ABC Nightly News here for a Nightline piece he was doing. I forget his name. We can look him up. Shows how much the mainstream media has died, that one of the main hosts of ABC Nightly News, I don't even know his name. I forget his name. And he said, there is no world government. There is no move towards a corporate world government. So I showed him Ron Paul quotes, Barry Goldwater quotes by then President George Herbert Walker Bush back in the 90s, and then at the time Prime Minister of England, Gordon Brown. And I showed him video clips as well. And he looked at me in that control room and said, they're talking about a different world government than you're talking about. And I went, no, they're not. And he laughed. And he said, well, that's your opinion. It's a game they play. Here's the deal. Your children are being hit with fluoride to brain damage them and give them bone cancer. Your children are being brain damaged by television. You're being brain damaged by it. We are being bombarded by high-frequency radiation pollution. And it's part of a strategic, long-term, soft kill program that the Nazis adopted from international business machines who developed the computers that were used in the work camps to track how much people were fed or when they were executed. And IBM today runs the Watson computers that are controlling when you get health care, what prices you pay, when you're put on a death list, on a no-treat list. We're already under this system where the doctors are told what to give you as an anesthesiologist, what to give you in terms of surgery or what medications. We're already having our free will, our judgment removed from the equation. Police are going to be nothing more than robots, told every order what to do with live cameras on them at all times, being directed. And they'll be allowed to kill, maim, whatever. It won't be to reform them, but to fully automate them. IBM launches Watson Health Global Analytics Cloud. It's in the cloud. Mobilize your world, AT&T. I'm about to break that down. But here it is. Call of Duty increases risk of Alzheimer's. Scientists say players navigate the screen using a key area of the brain called the caudate nucleus, which leads to loss of gray matter in the hippocampus. Previous studies have shown reduced volume in the brain, which controls memory, learning, and emotion. It's associated with neurological and psychological disorders, including dementia and depression. And the main reason that this is happening is not because you're just sedentary. It's putting you into a sleep mode at a time that the rest of the brain's not lined up for sleep. And it's got your brain doing unnatural things it's not meant to be doing. And you're making these movements in your mind without connecting it to your body, so it's virtual reality, and it's creating all sorts of motor neuron control disconnects to the middle ear, to your balance, to everything. Just like reading in the car is unnatural for most people, and you'll get nauseous doing it, even if you're not really a person that has motion sickness, you'll still get grumpy. I noticed when I was a kid, my mom was driving and my dad was reading. He'd claim he didn't get motion sick. But, man, let me tell you, after about 2 hours, we stopped or something to get gas. He was usually pretty nice. You didn't want to give him any lip. Because he'd get out, he'd have a headache, he'd look around, he'd be angry. He wouldn't know why. Because what he was doing, you're not designed to do. It's unnatural. And people say, well, you just need to adapt. This is not being done to make us adapt. This is being done to end us. The IQs are dropping. The cancer rates are exploding. Everything good is down. Everything bad is up. This is scientific. And now they're moving towards the full-time goggles. Now continuing. Call of Duty. Previous studies have shown reduced volume in the hippocampus, which controls memory, learning, and emotion. It's associated with neurological and psychological disorders, including dementia and depression. What's fluoride do in the new big government studies out of England? Causes depression, causes anger, causes dementia, causes early onset of Alzheimer's. Yeah, when you drink poison that's used as bug killer, it's not very good for you. There's the headline. London Telegraph, fluoride in drinking water may trigger depression and weight gain, warn scientists. There's no may about it. So if you want your brain to be damaged, if you want to be in a brain fog, if you want to not function and have your own life and be taught to be dehumanized. I mean, I know people that go out. I know people in my life that I've lost who I never see anymore, and when I do, they're zombies. And you know what they do? They go home and they watch their favorite TV shows, and then they play video games. And folks, let's get something straight. I go out sometimes to a place called Pinballs that's got a bunch of pinball machines and video games. And then it's a special event, and studies have shown it's actually good for the brain. A rarity, once a month. You're standing up. You're driving the race car. You're shifting the gears. Overall, it's not bad for you. A little of something bad can be good. But if you're doing this an hour a day, you are being hurt. And understand, it's not on accident. It's all perfectly geared. Again, I was allowed into the University of Texas Psychology Department into areas that are restricted. I'll just leave it at that. And they have a monkey farm out in Bastrop with thousands of primates at any one time. One of the biggest in the country. And they had DARPA programs with the monkeys strapped in, and they euthanize them after a week, with their brains strapped in, and just studying still flicker rates. DARPA CIA run. Trying to find that perfect sweet spot to make you go into a trance and submit. So now do you think I care when they get on the news and call me a kook and a nut when I know all this? I mean, it's like, you're victims too, morons. You're under psychological warfare attack. And you need to be aware of it. Look at these headlines. Steve Jobs didn't let his kids use iPads. Gray matter. Too much screen time damages the brain. Psychology Today. No, any screen time does. Smartphones, iPads hurt toddlers' ability to learn, socialize. What your brain looks like after a Netflix binge. Huffington Post. And what's it look like? Lower brain waves forever. The Idiot Box. How it's turning us all into zombies. It's been called the Idiot Box since the 50s. You ever sat there and looked at your children when they're watching TV and their mouths are open? They're like, it's like the Body Snatchers or something. There's parks, there's rivers, there's mountains, there's you could go join a boxing club, a jiu-jitsu club. You could go join clubs that go out and look for fossils. I mean, there's just such an incredible universe around us, but the globalists want us looking into the little universe they control, where they can feed us all these false narratives and prey on the population. And it's not just electronic brainwashing. It's not just the flicker rate. Once you're in the mesmerized field, once you're under the trance, the literal trance, once you're under a spell, once you're in the flicker fusion threshold, once you're under its control, what does it do? It takes wholesome images, just like a block of cheese, a slice of cheese, of delicious cheddar, on the mouse trap. But the mouse doesn't know that it's about to get its neck broken. And it goes over and it starts eating the cheese and it steps on that lever. Whap! Dead mouse. But see, they kill you with poison in the cheese, and you go off and die a month later. You go off and die 10 years later, and you don't even know what hit you. And the computers are all in place, run by the company that ran the Nazis. IBM is now in full control of the global health algorithm and can block diagnoses, can hide what's happening, can control, can discover when doctors are finding out about something, can shut off funding, because the Nazis were going to take over the planet with the eugenics technology they learned from the U.S. and England. They were told they were going to be allowed to, and they were set up and brought down. Doesn't mean they were good. They were just set up. This is all mainline Nuremberg trials. Fluoride in the water, all of it. They were going to go in and put fluoride in the water. They were going to engineer food and lace food. They were already working on finding the genome. They've been given all the Cold Springs Harbor data, and they brought them to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, and they were going to engineer food that dumbed down and phased out the sub-races, as they called them. That entire program has then been readopted back into the United States. When 36,000 Nazis were brought over here after World War II, a lot of them were just coming back to where they'd already been trained. And they were put in command of all the major universities, almost every one. They were put in control of all of NASA. They were put in control of the CIA. They were put into the FBI. They were put into every division. And not because they were the body of the Hydra. They were just a loving, sweet little head coming back to mommy to get milk. It was a hurt little head that had been kind of squashed, but was only used to bring in the larger globalist program of soft kill, and the cartoon Nazis in their thug uniforms and everything was just how they'd been trained and set up by Lord Milner and others. And it was like, it's okay now. We crushed you. We're going to bring you home. Call it Cobra, call it Spectre, call it Hydra. It is the shadow global criminal network that are eugenicists. I'm going to skip this network break. This information is too important, but no more today, I promise. Thank you. So that's just one little article I have about, let's not exaggerate, probably 150, 200 here, I don't know. In fact, at the end of the show today, guys, I want you to come in and count these articles just to see if I'm exaggerating. Here, this stack right here. This stack right here, I bet, is about 30 articles. 30, 50, 80, 100. Yeah, it looks about 130. Each one of them just as incredible, just as over the top, just as revealing, just as much in your face. Because they can be in your face now because it's all wide open. They've got most of the public in a trance state. Now, speaking of what happens once you're in a trance state, I saw this yesterday. We had it DVR'd here at the office when I got here. And then Rob Dew found, let's not exaggerate, I think more than 10 others. And everyone's the same. Men are lazy idiots, trendies, non-threatening trendies, hipsters. Their women are in command. And the women use smart grid, mobilize your future, your world, apps to watch their husbands on cameras, to open the doors, to turn on the alarms. And the men are basically absolute idiots. Now, in all the ads I saw, they're trendies, except for this one. He's more of a football player type, cool jock dad. What every woman, thinks she wants. And she's real loving and sweet. She makes the decisions, though, in the house, which 80% of purchases are decided by women. And it's been like that in every culture. Back at the hut, back at the cave. The men go out, fight, die, bring down the big animals, do all that, come back, and then trust their women, because it's all part of the family. It's one unit to raise the children. But see, now, he doesn't raise the children. The AT&T NSA-run grid, with the woman teamed up, with the house slave, because the Romans did this. It wasn't just in the South here where the black woman was brought in, learned to read and write, put in charge of a lot of the house affairs, and then she kept the men down and would spy on them, who would literally sleep on the dirt or in hay straw and would bend down to her. That's from Roman manuals over 2,000 years old, with their German and Gaulish French slaves, and their Austrian slaves, and their Albion slaves, their British slaves, their pit slaves. You bring the women in, and they watch the other men. And this is how it is. This is our bondage. And women have been told. Women know. They go, I am now with the state. It is my friend. It tells me I win. All the movies show me as the hero now. The men are down. The fall of men is here. That's right. The fall of humankind is here. We're going down. We're on fire. We're hit hard. We're killing our babies. It's one unit. Men and women together are the species as a team. Men have been turned into Arrested Development snot noses. And the women go out and get an Arrested Development snot nose, and then they're not happy and turn them loose and go, well, then I want a woman who's butch because I'm looking for a man. And the only role where somebody can be manly is if they are a Janet Reno. And so then they go and live together and create a husband and wife scenario with their own sex. When you want to take out fire ants, there's different systems to develop, but they've got some that hit the sexual procreation. You sterilize them. And see, we've just been hit just as much as when alien spacecraft landed and took over our society through AI and was running all this. I mean, it might as well be that, as I've said 100 times. It's that over the top. And I want to air this ad here as we skip our own. This is not paid. The next thing people, the fake story will be that I'm running AT&T ads. The point is that this is the brainwashing that they're engaged in. I just think it's interesting that we're skipping our ads to play one of their ads. Where in every ad that we pulled up, there's a whole series of these. They're on YouTube. I saw this on the Weather Channel yesterday morning. That the man is a complete bumbling idiot. But don't worry, Mama's got the AI computer. Mama's got the system watching him. You know, Dad forgets to open the door for the dog sitter. Don't worry, the computer will do it. Dad forgets to arm the alarm. Don't worry, Mom will do it. Don't worry, Dad fell asleep on the couch and the kids are up. Mom is going to, Big Brother talk to him. See, Big Brother's nice. Big Brother's helpful. And then he forgets, to turn the lights off. Well, she does that. But she loves him. She says, I love you. And that's what they would do. They describe it, translated out of Latin into French and then into English, that half the blacks would die when they were shipped over in a coffin ship. They'd cram so many down the bottom. A lot of times the sailors would die. In fact, on every mission, about 10% would die as well. Just horrible. That's how cheap life was. And when they got there, they said, pick out whoever the leader is, whoever people are looking to, and basically beat him to death. And then take a boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, and whip him. And tell the women through the translators that you'll have on the ship, this is right when they get to the slave block in New York or wherever, or Virginia, beat them right there in front of them within an inch of their life, and you tell them, you keep these men in line or we're going to kill them all. That's what they tell women today. You keep your men in line if you want to be safe. You do what the state says. Now, within a few generations of that, the women just hate the men and prey on them. And this is our journey into total slavery. This is who we are now. And it doesn't matter what sitcom or what drama it is. Dads are bad. Dads are stupid. Dads are lazy. Unless they've got gay friends or unless they've married a minority. And again, I'm not even demonizing these messages. The point is they're unified messages of social engineering. And when you see these messages, you need to understand you're not in Kansas anymore. Imagine every message is that men are bad. Every message is that men are no good. And it's there to hurt women, the main target, who are the species. Women are the species. And they convince them to love their slavery. Just like the Uncle Tom in Django. That's what our women have been taught, to fight to the death for the state, to thank the state for everything it does to them. Let's go ahead and think all their frustrations and problems are in the failed men who were raised to be failures by their mothers, who were told to henpeck them into submission and to make them weak. I remember being 6 years old, walking out the back door with a double-barrel 12-gauge shotgun and a pistol holstered on my side. 6, 7 years old. And my grandmother looking at me while she was sitting there cooking food and going, Be safe, sweetheart. And she just looked down while she was cooking with pride. She wanted a man. She wanted a strong tribe. She wanted her progeny to go to the stars, not fail. She was a real woman. Not these things we've got running around today, and not these men. These aren't men either. Where is your pride to stand against this, women, when every ad has men being crap? What does that tell you about this system? What it wants to do to us? Let's now go to the evil ad from AT&T.
Piece of bacon with your egg and the omelet for the king.
Okay, babe. You got this, right?
Yeah, that's a piece of cake. I got this.
All right. Good luck.
He doesn't
Love you
work.
guys.
She does.
Home
See, it's
from
supposed to be
nearly
men that
anywhere.
are
Yes, you
they're thinking
forgot
about
about the
security.
sidewalk.
See, everything's reversed.
866-595-7988 today.
Oh,
for our
see, he
special
forgot to let her
$99
in.
Digital Life package.
Piece of cake, huh?
Hit pause. Back it up 15 seconds. See, oh, he forgot to let the dog sitter in. She goes, piece of cake, huh? Everything she does is diss her husband, unaffirm him. She'll put her boys on Prozac. She'll put them on Ritalin. She'll stun them. She'll hit them. She'll win. She'll win. Let's go back to her.
Call right now to get smart security equipment, plus an outdoor video camera, plus a garage door controller, all for $99.
Oh, come on, honey. It's so late.
Whoa, what are you doing up? All right. Thanks, honey.
Real life needs digital.
Oh, thanks, honey, for the AI. Thanks for running my life. Maybe she has an app to wipe his butt. See, the message is you don't need men. Well, they don't need humans, folks. It's the rise of the machines. Warning, warning, warning. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. Well, we're raising the alarm. We are men. The globalists want robots. They want automatons. They're turning us into machines in the interim while preparing to merge with their new high-tech bodies, in Peter Thiel's words, Ray Kurzweil's words, in all their words. I don't know if the founder, billionaire of PayPal is himself an evil person, but he certainly is pushing the life extension, and I don't blame him. The problem is the overall globalist program is a future that doesn't need us. The globalists have captured the world through fraud. They've set up a scientific control grid. They believe we're profane and unworthy because we can't even comprehend it, and they're now moving ahead with their plan. And so I'm going to say this to ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, everybody else that attacks me. Do you understand I am not of your world? You understand that? I'm not in your paradigm. I'm outside of it. I'm in the world, not of it. And by that, I don't mean I'm Mr. Goody Two-Shoes and I'm of the flesh, because that's what brought me here and that's what I am. I'm speaking of the fact that I know how real this is. I know that you're sad victims of peer pressure and sad victims of social climbing and didn't have the opportunities I had, didn't come from the people that I came from. So I pity you. The point you need to understand is that you are losing and you are being destroyed by your masters. You are a joke, and that's sad. I wish you'd have the epiphany like Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus. And I pray God lift the scales from your eyes. I know why you're afraid. Just like V says, I wouldn't blame you. But when you get to the end of the road, and you realize that it's an attack on goodness and wholesomeness and the genetic code of humanity and the planet itself, and that it is an alien takeover. Alien doesn't have to come from the distant stars or from some interdimensional vortex. Scientists and corporations, mad scientists, are creating new life forms, new abominations that in almost every case fundamentally attack and scar and do not coexist in any form of harmony with this jewel of a globe. And then we are tortured with endless fake environmentalism to distract us and fill the vacuum of legitimate concern for the earth that we can feel the damage that's happening. We can see it. It's affecting us just as we're sick. The earth is sick. And then we have to sit there and watch the counterfeits who are the authors and the progenitors and the drivers of this coach that's being pulled by 1,000 hellhounds. Unbelievable. I mean, if you just understand all this is going on and is planned, if you just realize that it's all coming to a head and that we could reverse a lot of this and have this crash landing be a lot less horrible and have a face-to-face debate with the globalists. I'll never forget Gary Hart being in front about We Are Change. It's in the film on DVD I put out, Truth Rising. Gary Hart, who wrote an open letter in Huffington Post about how our government stages terror attacks and Iran better do what we say or we'll stage a terror attack and attack them. And they brought it up to him, gave him the letter, and he kept saying, no, I didn't write that. No, I didn't say that. No, you're a conspiracy theorist. And as soon as he did, he started sweating. He goes, okay, but that really wasn't for you. Gotta go. Because it's the game of there is no NSA. We're not coming for your guns. And then we, like children, play along. He's talking to you like he's a magician and you've been hypnotized. Hey, I'm not hypnotized, jackass. Got that? I'm alive. I'm not sleeping. I could care less about being at Fox Studios and sitting around with a bunch of mummies. You people on your so-called high horse, you're a joke. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, I'm your host, Alex Jones, on this Wednesday, the 20th day already of May 2015. I spent pretty much the entire hour getting into dehumanization, the attack on humanity and life, and we're going to do that this hour as well, but from another angle. We're going to be talking to the head of the organization that is exposing black genocide, blackgenocide.org, Pastor Childress, Leonard Childress. Then New American Magazine writer and author Alex Newman's going to be joining us on the war on children inside the schools and his new book that's already becoming a bestseller, Crimes of the Educators. We're going to chronicle it. You see, we're pro-human here. We're pro-true advancement and truly want to progress freedom, not regress it, as the counterfeiters would tell you. The globalists are the opposite, the inverse of everything they say they are. They're not about life, they're about death. They are eugenicists. I told you forever, and because I had top experts on, whistleblowers from the Federal Reserve, you name it, here on this broadcast. We also had the head of the World Bank come on, two-time head economist, two-time Nobel Prize winner for economics. The documents got leaked. About Joe Stiglitz. That world interest rates have been fixed since the 60s at least by private megabanks. There were 6, there's now 5. And of course, Rolling Stone came out with Matt Taibbi a few years ago and had the headline, "Everything is rigged." And it went over that. The stock market, interest rates, QE, money printing, all of it. It's come out in Associated Press, Business Week, Bloomberg, that just 2 of these banks laundered $378 billion in 2 years alone. $378 billion. You know why they keep drugs illegal? Because they're shipping them in, boys and girls. Doesn't mean I like the drug culture. Doesn't mean I'm for drugs. But you decriminalize it, it takes all the money and all the glitz out of it. And what am I getting at? Reuters, major banks admit guilt in Forex probe, fined $6 billion. Folks, they make $6 billion a day. In fact, global currency markets, I've seen some days where they've made 20, 30 billion. Manipulating it because they know what it's going to be. And so it's like a stock market. And so it's totally fixed. By who? By Citigroup. Oh, it's part of the Big Five. JP Morgan. Oh, Barclays, the Royal Bank of Scotland. And they describe themselves as a cartel. Invitation only chat room and coded language manipulated the price of U.S. dollars. Oh, just like spies. And by the way, I just listed those banks. Those are the very groups funding the open borders, the gun control, the abortion, the anti-male messages in Hollywood. You wonder why every movie has men complete idiots who can't tie their shoelaces. I just played the AT&T ad where the dad's a complete moron and his wife watches his every move off cameras in the house. And it's so cute. All of this is how the Romans managed slaves 2,000 years ago with just a high-tech casing, a high-tech icing. Okay, that's just one article out of 130 or so. I mean, it's just all off the charts. And, of course, we already knew that. It's now come out that they fixed the gold and silver market using paper naked shorts to keep the price down. And what the insiders told me a decade ago is true. From the U.S. vaults to other major vaults, they've got tungsten coated with gold. It weighs the same amount roughly, and it's fake gold. They're using fake gold that they then sell to each other. It never even leaves the vault. Back and forth to drive down the price. Tungsten. And they can buy up everything and sign us on to 2.2 globally, 2.2 quadrillion. That's 2,200 trillion. That's not our debt. They've signed the U.S. on to half of that. It was 1.5 billion in 2008 when they pulled their last scam. Oh, and we shouldn't be concerned about military drills all over and saying the Tea Party's their enemy and Christians are the enemy. And Fort Hood, commanding general, telling the troops you'll be court-martialed if you are evangelical Christian or part of the Tea Party, ending free association in America. Oh, no, we shouldn't be concerned. There's nothing going on. The president just unilaterally has opened the borders and is paying to bring people in. And the Border Patrol, quote, completes the smuggling process. So with all of that backdrop, look at this. New York City, there's no inflation. Fights break out over $30 hot dogs at Ground Zero. It's now a sickening tourist attraction. And again, Call of Duty, major study. Video games cause brain damage. Yeah, I don't need a study to know that. These people that are video game heads just aren't there. They're just into themselves. They go get their little thing and they go back. And then you always hear about like some 35-year-old guy that doesn't even smoke having an aneurysm because they played, 10 hours of video games a day. They're dead already. Now, Jakari Jackson tomorrow is going to be leading. We're going to our guest. Is going to be leading, our reporter, with other folks, a demonstration in South Austin off of Ben White, or 290 as it's known. We're going to put the address on screen for TV viewers. It's 201 East Ben White, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Come on anytime during your lunch hour. It'd be best to be there if you can only make it for an hour at noon. Leave a little early. Tell your boss, I want to go to a pro-life free speech rally. Planned Parenthood's been caught trying to pass legislation in different states to restrict free speech. They target on record black people. 50+% of blacks were never born in this country. It's as high as 70% in some major cities. Blacks are 13% of the population. And so this is our Black Lives Matter protest to take over the George Soros meme that's about getting racial division going and infighting, to ignore the fact that we have double-digit unemployment in the black community. We're going to be out there, and I'm going to be covering it live tomorrow, checking in with Jakari. Please join him tomorrow. I want to see 100 people out there. We're only spending a few days, promoting this because we had the idea. We're doing it. Take photos, share it on Twitter, share our YouTube videos. This won't save the world, but I guarantee it's going to save some lives. I guarantee you some women are going to see us out there and are going to know that they can. In fact, we should print off some of the charities that are out there that actually take care of women when they're pregnant, even pay them to have the baby. In fact, I just thought of that. We should print off some of those foundations. I'm not associated with them. They got Catholic and other Christian groups, and we should hand those out and maybe save some lives tomorrow. Or at least let the women know, hey, they're not going to tell you inside. People pay to take care of that baby. You can adopt it. There are more people wanting to adopt babies every year than are aborted in this country. And I always hear this cliche, nobody wants black babies. That's a load of bull. So then they got liberal groups arguing to make sure that white Christian families can't adopt black babies. Yeah, it's better to cut them up, sell their body parts for Pepsi flavoring. Pretty sick. Pastor Clinard Childers is with us the rest of the hour. We're going to break here in a few minutes, sir. I appreciate you coming on, blackgenocide.org. But what are you going to be breaking down here today, sir?
Well, I'm just excited about your ingenuity and the strategy that you're using. I think it's a God-given thing. Certainly, it's not a pro-life marketing scheme, but this is certainly connecting the dots in the African-American community. The few times we've gone out with this, the project itself, it has opened up the eyes of so many students. And so Black Life Matters is a gift from God, and I applaud what you're doing there in Austin.
Well, we didn't even know that it was, our separate idea that came from one of the writers, Mikhail Thalen. We learned other folks around the country, mainly black pastors. I mean, you may know who they are. It might be you. I was just being told about it a few hours ago. are actually out there already taking over the Black Lives Matter meme.
Yes, absolutely. We've been at Fayetteville State College. First, it's staggering to the students, but we had some strategic signs.
Hold on. I'm going to stop and give you the floor when we come back. We got to go to break. This is too incredible. We just had a demonstration. I said, get Reverend Childress on, see what he thinks of it. And then I heard him mentioning, there's other groups doing it, and it's you. See, that's how God works. We didn't even know this. We didn't even.
Really?
No. I was getting you on, just to talk about pro-life and to promote what's happening tomorrow. I didn't even know you'd already been doing this.
Just started since February.
See, I'm telling you, this is incredible. This could spread nationwide, folks. We could save millions of lives. White, black, you name it. They're all precious. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, we're here live. Alex Jones hosting, and that's me. By the way, as a lot of you probably noticed, I like to do themed weeks. Sometimes we'll have 4 or 5 guests on about GMO, or 3 or 4 guests on about the Second Amendment, or 3 or 4 guests on about border situation, or 3 or 4 guests on pro-life, or exposing what's happening in that fight. When I said get Pastor Clenard Childress on, who we've interviewed for films, had on the Nightly News, probably been on this radio show 10 times or more, I just wanted to talk about abortion, where the fight is, get some updates, talk about Black Lives Matter. I had Mark Crutcher of Life Dynamics News on yesterday, and he was saying, and then they mentioned it earlier, I heard there's some other groups doing this Black Lives Matter, and I hadn't looked it up yet. And then I just posited, I said, hey, maybe you're involved, to the pastor. And sure enough, because I was putting 2 and 2 together, what state he's in, sure enough, he's the one doing it. So it just shows how we all have these ideas separately, and how that's the gift that God gives us, that we're all on the same page. It's really magic. But I briefly wanted to bring in Mikhail Thalen just for 30 seconds. Mikhail, was about 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to ask you, this was separately your idea about, hey, Black Lives Matter, we should talk about abortion, and you wrote some articles about it, not knowing that Reverend Childress was already doing it. That is so exciting. Briefly tell us about your idea.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of his Maafa 21 documentary. It's really, really powerful. And so, Black Lives Matter has been in the news, and it just came to me. I thought, man, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but, abortion is such a thing that's targeted on their community with, over 78% of abortion clinics in poor black communities, and, of course, the history of Margaret Sanger. So it just seems something obvious to do.
Absolutely. Now, without further ado, I'm going to give Pastor Childress the floor during this short segment and the next segment coming up. Tell us about how you come up with this idea, what you've done, the success you've had, and then let's break down the current black genocide program going on, how that war is going for the globalist.
Well, right now, your program does such an excellent job. First of all, I want to let your listeners know Black Lives Matters is something that some entity, whether it be government or anarchists, whoever, they plan to market this to cause unrest in the African-American community, especially in the inner cities. I don't know a lot about it, but in my travels, I noticed that this was very orchestrated, and seemingly these groups came out of nowhere carrying this mantra. But of course, we've been saying Black Lives Matters since I've been involved in the pro-life movement, and others since 1973. And I knew it was something, too, that God would use these tragic situations with Eric Garner, with Mike Brown, and Trayvon Martin to bring about an awareness in the African-American community. I was getting emotional a little bit listening to your testimony, not knowing that I was attached to it and this young man. because I told Greg Cunningham of Center for Bioethical Reform, who called me on the phone at the same time. I'm saying somebody needs to take Black Lives Matters on another level and market this. Use guerrilla marketing. Use what they're using dollars to push. When we went to the Fayetteville State College, that month was April. And what was on Time magazine? Black Lives Matters. That was the front page of Time magazine. So the kids had already been saturated with this saying. And so when we came out with Black Lives Matters and showed a baby next to aborted fetuses and saying all Black life matters, they connected with it. And then we had other signs that basically kind of showed that abortion suppresses the Black vote. And that killed the administration's attack on us from being on campus, that this wasn't trying to merchandise them or use them politically. We were concerned about their empowerment. And so it really caused the students to have absolutely great conversations. I was so surprised that you were doing that rally when you called. I said to myself, gosh, others are running with this. This is
I was
going
about to
be a
say,
connection.
I couldn't put my finger on why I was so excited learning that you were doing this before us. It just meant that it was meant to happen and that people were connecting the dots to all this. But look at the university trying to claim that you couldn't come on, claiming that you were promoting your ministry. So what? Anybody, if students invite you, should be able to come on a university.
Well, Planned Parenthood showed up while we were there. They are so systemically entrenched in the educational and academia. And I learned later while on campus that Fayetteville State College pays for the first abortion for any young lady.
Incredible.
So,
stay there. I'm going to give you the floor when we come back to break this down. All Black lives matter. All lives matter. And if we don't take care of our people, the children, our veterans, and others, we're all going to end up getting it. What comes around goes around, folks. All across this country today, thousands of little children will have their lives snuffed out violently. They'll be burned to death with chemicals. They'll be chopped up with knives. They'll be thrown into trash cans and put in the dump. And now we do that with our veterans as well. Just as the pro-lifers always warned from back in the 70s, they said soon it'll be get rid of the old people, euthanize them. Soon it'll be death panels. Soon it'll be don't treat the veterans. Soon it'll be get rid of the mentally ill. And once you have socialist health care, that's what happens. I want to talk about that with Reverend Childress here in just a moment and give him the floor to break all this down and really talk about the current state of the fight for life. But we can't expect to be a good nation and to have any future. I saw on the news today, it's back in mainstream news about China forcing women to have abortions. They're getting UN awards for that. That's what our elite would like to have here. We can't expect to be secure or have a future or to be blessed if we treat humans like this. You notice we're a major platform as well for folks fighting tyranny on 100 different fronts. And we've been able to build this operation up to reach more than 20 million people a week when you count the AM and FM audience, YouTube, Boxy, the people watching over their televisions. And that's thanks to you spreading the word about the broadcast. So please continue to tell your friends and family about the show. Please continue to, in your emails, sign off by having Infowars.com/show to find forbidden information. Please continue to realize you are the power of this transmission. You're the reason they're attacking us so much, and I'm willing to be the figurehead because we've got to stand up for the innocents. We've got to beat these globalists. And by the way, I'm not doing some favor there that I'm a hero doing this. I couldn't lay down. Just like when I was a kid, 11 years old, and the 14-year-old kids, would beat me up sometimes walking home from school. After that happened a few times, folks, I started fighting back. It's an instinct. And so I love my job. I love what I do. I wouldn't have it any other way. But realize that I'm thanking you for all you've done. You are not beside us or behind us or in front of us. You are at the heart of Infowars.com in this whole operation, your prayers and everything. And when you financially support us buying the Patriot apparel to meet like-minded people and spread the word, when you buy the high-quality water filters that cut out the glyphosates and fluoride and hundreds of other chemicals, you're not just supporting your family and your health, you're supporting our broadcast, our transmission, what you're doing. It's a win-win. See, good things are symbiotic. Good things build harmony. Good things promote life. Not really rocket science, is it? And that's why we've come up with the best nutraceuticals on the planet. You've heard the rave reviews, the highest quality ingredients, whether it's DNA Force or Super Male Vitality or Prostagard or Child Ease that doesn't have drugs in it. It just has stuff that focuses and calms children's minds. Works amazingly. You've heard the rave reviews. Winter Sun, methylcobalamin, vitamin B12, Secret 12, all of these proprietary. The nascent iodine is the true nascent iodine that so many people are deficient in. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. That's 888-253-3139. We can answer all your questions. Take your order over the phone, 888-253-3139. And notice it's InfoWarsLife.com. We're lovers of life. I want to live a long time. I want my kids to have great lives. I want your kids to have great lives. I don't want to see poverty and ignorance and enslavement and diseases and all this stuff that the globalists are pushing. And they make money off the crises they help create. It's a different philosophy, and we've got to get aggressive. InfoWarsLife.com. Thank you for your support. If you're listening on an Amber FM station, tell people today and every day. Tune in. If you're a business owner, double down or we're going to lose everything. Buy a billboard for the show or for the station. None of us could put billboards up all over the country, but together we can put them up individually or on the side of your barn. Infowars.com. All right, I'm going to shut up and give him the floor because I had to cover news. I got late today. He's been with us. Reverend Childers, you've got the floor to break down your Black lives. Really do matter. All Black lives matter. Absolutely. They're hijacking the crisis in a community to try to create political division. You're just taking it back and pointing it out. So I do use the word that we're re-hijacking it away. But break down currently what's happening. Again, blackgenocide.org. And let's get into the real black genocide, the targeting by the Klan, by the Nazis, by Planned Parenthood, by the Rockefellers of black people. We're not just saying, hey, this is killing half of you. This is really going on. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Right here in the city of New York, over 65% of all African-American births in an abortion. There's more aborted than there is born alive. Nationally, 1,786 a day. And you're saying it's time to fight back. We're really trying to incite the church to fight back. When 52% nationally of all African-American births end in abortion, the church has been far too silent. The shedding of innocent blood pollutes the land. Every preacher should understand that if he's sowing seed and the land is polluted, then he's not going to get the return. And this is what's happening in America. We are about to enter into a period of judgment directly from this, the shedding of innocent blood. And as you see how we were all connected on this, Black Life Matters, it appears to me that God is not pleased with our efforts, and self included, of really taking this to the level to get into the Black community. So this was a gift to us. They're marketing it, and we're using guerrilla marketing and taking it over, and it has been quite effective. There's not a student on any college campus that hasn't heard Black Lives Matters, especially if they're African American. So we're going to the HSBCs, the historically Black colleges. We're setting up. We're going to connect them with Facebook. We're going to connect them, let them know there's another chapter in other Black colleges. This has not been done. It needs to be done. And African-American leadership, it's not where it should be, but it's beginning to wake up and recognize that basically that the perceived African-American leadership has victimized them. It was great when in Ferguson, where Jesse Jackson was booed out so he couldn't take up an offering. This is something that the African Americans are beginning to wake up on, but we have to be more diligent. And the statistics prove out that we haven't done our job as preachers, especially. So we plan to take this not only to HSBC, but we plan to be at the NAACP in July in Philadelphia. And we'll be there for 3 days with those signs. And I am sure it's going to cause quite a stir, because basically they'll have seminars inside saying Black Lives Matters. Well, we're going to have our signs outside, all Black Lives Matters. And if there's anyone who has been facilitating the decimation of the African American community by abortion, it has been the NAACP, and profiting from it and merchandising their own constituency. So this is what I do, is seemingly this is where God has me to labor in. And we're excited that we're beginning to connect with other pastors. Actually, this season, this time has been a fruitful time to let them to see that indeed Black leadership basically has sold them out. You had Robin Kelly of the Congressional Black Caucus, I think from Michigan, actually partnering with Planned Parenthood. And the seminar was about, this is a congresswoman, the seminar was about how to get Planned Parenthood into more African American communities. When the young man there on the program put out that there's a disproportionate amount of them by design. Folks, this is all systemic. This is all by design. We just have to recognize and acknowledge that. But I was listening to your program previously. They're running test runs on basically on causing chaos in the urban community, and this was a part of that. How it was going to all unfold, I do not know, but I do know that there is a concerted effort to begin to cause unrest in the African American communities in the inner cities, possibly to bring about martial law, possibly to bring about control. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, just interrupting for just a moment with Reverend Childress here, Alex Jones popping in. If you just joined us, obviously, why we're launching this, why you launched this back in February, is we can take over this destructive White House, George Soros-funded balkanization, divide and conquer movement, and we can then try to get other people around the country to have their own Black Lives, really do matter events to educate people. And it's possible we could turn the tide and show people where the real problem is, and explain that the mainstream media is trying to distract Black Americans, African Americans, from double unemployment since Obama got in, to the open borders displacing their jobs, to being targeted with abortion, and show the MSNBC strategy is to keep Blacks on the Democratic Party plantation. Sorry, go ahead.
Without question. And fortunately, the younger generation is beginning to give an ear. And that has been exciting, and that has been something that has been motivating us. And I believe this time next year or a year from now, they will regret ever coming up with that mantra, Black Lives Matters, because we're going to expose them for who they are, that all Black Lives Matters. And Congressional Black Caucus, one of the biggest problems that Black people have, the NAACP, the National Action Committee, the Rainbow Coalition, all are intertwined in this. They're all in agreement of carrying on this deception in the Black community. But their biggest mistake will be having used this as a means of communicating their cause. It is going to elevate our cause and expose the genocide, systemic genocide in the African American community, the targeting of the African American community. I'm sure you basically realize it was like, I believe it was once again a test run. I think they're testing to see what they're doing, but to actually nominate Margaret Sanger to be on the $20 bill, I believe they did that just to see the response and how it would be.
I'd forgotten about that. She's been Time Magazine Woman of the Year just a decade ago or something after she was dead. She'd been Time Magazine when she was alive. This is a literal hardcore racist who gave awards to Nazis, got awards, and they're saying put her on the dollar bill or the 20.
On the $20 bill. You know, I don't have the platform I would love to have, but we were yelling and screaming, and I was writing many of the black media saying that this is an outrage. In the age of political correctness, you know, the comments that this woman has made, her own words, and you're going to suggest her to be on the $20 bill. It was outrageous. But you know something, the game is this. If they can flood us at one time with so many different issues and problems, we become desensitized to outrage. And that's where the church has lost its power. There is no outrage in the church any longer over these blatant atrocities, these blatant deceptions, these blatant criminal acts. I'm saying, and my radio, I do a little radio program and it went off, I guess, but I'm saying to myself, how in this day and age is Hillary Clinton a viable candidate with all of that is being exposed at one time? If it's not the servers, if it's not email, if it's not Benghazi, if it's not foreign diplomats giving to her foundation, but yet this is the candidate, basically, especially the African Americans who 95% support Democrat candidates. This is the person, and yet she is defending, accepting the Margaret Sanger Award, boldly accepting it, and yet she's going to ask and court the black vote. It's like I'm living in the Twilight Zone. I don't understand, but it's like we're just being totally, it's like the frog in the water.
You're right. Reverend Childress, blackgenocide.org. Let's expand on this for a moment because you're quite the historian on these facts. For people that don't know, break down, I mean, it's on record how the Rockefeller Foundation, Margaret Sanger, and others totally changed the black community, went in, bought off a bunch of preachers, and because they said blacks don't, trust us, but they'll trust black preachers. I mean, these are letters that she sent, as you know, to the Colgate Foundation, and there's letters back and forth. They were giving her money, and it's her whole battle plan. You look at it today, and I'm not saying that the Republicans are great either, but the Democrats were the party of the Klan. When they couldn't get blacks to believe them anymore, they flipped and said, oh, we love you. Look what's happened to the black community since they adopted everything the Democrats wanted. It's just totally insane that they've gotten away with this. It's just crazy. Talk some about that.
Well, you know, the most diabolical part of that, it was called the Negro Project, is that Margaret Sanger, she was a very evil woman, but she was very discerning. And she said, in order to control the black community, we have to get the colored minister with high communicative skills. In other words, community organizers that we would buy out. And it is no surprise, and your listeners should understand that Barack Obama did fundraising events for Planned Parenthood before he was president of the United States. He was the prototypical person of the Negro Project plan in that letter to Clarence Gamble of Procter & Gamble. So we got to understand that she also recognized that if she can control the ministers, she would be able to control the African-American community to accept abortion as a means basically of birth control. And that was her goal. And so, and you mentioned, this is a woman who tutored Adolf Hitler, who had ties. Philip Stoddard was on her board, constantly went back and forth from the Third Reich communicating. When they changed the name from the Birth Control League, it was to Planned Parenthood. Nobody left. The staff was the same. The heads were the same. They just changed the name, and the ideology has not changed.
Sure, and I may have made a mistake earlier, but I conflate things. Now going back in memory, I know it was Procter & Gamble letters, but then also Colgate Foundation was involved somehow. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going from memory.
No, it very well may be. I didn't check that out recently.
I'll have to double check and correct it if I'm wrong. The point is,
he was the heir of Procter & Gamble there, so Colgate may have been involved also. But
absolutely. Well, I'm going to check into it and make sure my memory's not faulty. I want to come back, though, because I mentioned this once, almost embarrassed because it sounded like pure bull. And you went, of course, I hear that all the time. I want to talk about when I was going to pro-life rallies a lot, 16, 17, 18 years ago, on Access TV, the local black leaders had shows down there, and they literally said the most amazing things to me. I want to repeat when we come back. So Access TV was started in Austin, Texas, like 37, 38 years ago. They just had the anniversary a few years ago. And that's where I started out in 1995. But the black community was really using it and probably had half of the shows on there. Some of them really good, some of them really boring. A lot of preachers, you name it. But they had a lot of the community organizer people in there that drove like very nice Mercedes-Benz. I mean, late models, newer models, and nice suits, everything. And man, they hated my guts. And when I started really doing a lot of pro-life stuff a few years into it and talking about black genocide and things like that, they would actually get in my face in the hallways. These are guys you'd see on the news, guys you'd see, at the city council and stuff. And then they would file complaints on me and say I'd called into their show and called them the N-word. And I was pretty sure, as I started watching the tapes of it, they were having people call in and then say they were Alex Jones. And one time, one of the guys confronted me, and this is like a gray-haired, old black man. He goes, sharp dressed, well-spoken, the whole 9 yards. He goes, "Listen here, we're sick of your crap. We need to get rid of these, these poor scum black people." I forget the words he used. I think it was some pretty. This is a long time ago. And then that happened to me a few other times where I'd be demonstrating at a Planned Parenthood or whatever, or covering it, and black people walk over and say, "There's too many black people. We need to get rid of these people." And then now we have videos of Asian abortionists, black abortionists saying similar things. And I would tell people those stories, but it just sounded insane. And now I learned from talking to other black leaders around the country that are pro-life that they get the same thing. So these are people that knowingly are getting money to get rid of their people, and they hate them. And it's like bizarre. It's like the most hardcore Klan member, but it's a black liberal on TV talking about how much they love black people. And behind the scenes, they're like, "Nobody wants these nappy head N-words, and you need to shut your mouth." And you're just like, what the? I mean, how do you hate your people? I mean, what if I was being paid to get white people to kill? I can hardly even talk about it because it's so insane. It's so demonic. I want to keep you 5 more minutes of the next segment to cover other issues, and I want to put on screen for TV viewers a famous photo of Margaret Sanger addressing the Ku Klux Klan. We're going to have big signs of these out tomorrow at the main Planned Parenthood in Austin. It's a huge facility exposing this witch. And I'm sorry I'm ranting, Reverend Childress of blackgenocide.org. It's just that bringing up those memories, I was actually having flashbacks to all the horrible things these two guys pulled on me and how much they hated me because I didn't want to abort babies. I mean, it's crazy. What do you say to those stories? Have you experienced similar things?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, it becomes very much a part of their makeup and character because they're also monetarily being fed by the pro-woman, pro-abort, the Planned Parenthoods, as I stated in the plan for it was
but they
actually
hate black people.
They've never said that, but their actions would say that.
I mean, they talk about the unborn babies hatefully.
Yes.
Nobody wants these nappy babies.
Yes, you've even heard black abortionists say the same things. It's evil. First of all, abortion is evil, plain and simple. And you open up your heart and soul and mind to evil. And it doesn't surprise me that these black ministers who were profiting from it and also had bought into I don't want to go into that W.E. Du Bois, the talented 10%, where he said the top 10% of African Americans should be salvaged and the other 90 are expendable.
And he was funded by the Rockefellers again.
Yes, and that's true. But also, here's the problem why Alex Jones's program is so important and what you do is so vital to America. You mentioned the TV, the programs like
back in 70 seconds, sir. Back in 70 seconds. I want to have you back on the nightly news for a full hour soon. I interrupt a lot when I get on abortion subjects. I start stuttering. And, Pastor Clinton Childress talked about outrage fatigue. My problem is I don't have outrage fatigue, and I guess that's a blessing. I mean, I physically start getting hot, and it's cold in here, and angry when I was flashing back to those guys. and just the love of killing, the love of death. I take it as a threat when there's people like that running around. I mean, none of us are safe, folks, when this stuff's going on. Do you understand that? Where's the empathy? Join Jakari Jackson tomorrow at the demonstration in Austin. Have your own All Black Lives Matter. We're sending the hashtag out, hashtag All Black Lives Matter. We're linking it to our Infowars.com story and to blackgenocide.org. I think I'm going to send a tweet out here in a moment when we go to break. Top liberal caught meeting with the Klan. And then say, yeah, here she is back in the 40s, Margaret Sanger. We'll put that image back on screen. See, that's the way you got to get people to look at it, because they just go, oh, Time Magazine says she's the great feminist. No, she was who Hitler admired and who he got his marching orders from on eugenics. Now, we only got 3 to 4 minutes to break. I'm going to give Reverend Childress the floor to finish up. I know I've been ranting, but other key things folks should know about. I want to encourage you, sir, to continue what you're doing, for folks to support you, for you to continue your radio show, to do more YouTube videos, and for other people to do it as well. We've all got to fight. People are ready to be awakened. You have the floor for the last 3 minutes, Reverend Childress.
Yes, and I just want to say again that your program, you got to, people should support, people should get behind, do whatever we can to support mediums such as this, because you mentioned groups like Rockefeller, Carnegie and Mellon, Colgate, Procter and Gamble. PBS is supported by these people. And so if you want to have My Alpha 21 on PBS, it'll never happen because it exposes these foundations for the things of their eugenic present and past background. So there's very few mediums that really want to talk about Black genocide and eugenics and will do it objectively. And so I thank God for your program. I pray that you continue doing what you're doing, and just thankful for the spiritual connection that we've had. And when it comes to Black Lives Matters, if people want to support what we're doing, you can go to the website. Our mailing address is on there. But everyone can do something. You may not do what I do, but there's something we can do to expose this darkness. America needs to recognize that we have 56 million babies whose blood is crying out from the ground. And after a while, God visits innocent blood and he asks the question, where is your brother? And so we're going to be posed with that question sometime in the near future. And our hearts need to be able to say, we've done everything we can within the scope and within the resources that we have to stop this genocide, to stop. And yes, all Black life matters. I believe I probably saved more white babies than Black, but our focus is on the African-American community and the deception that is being carried by African-American leadership, which has been disgraceful. They are guilty of gross negligence of the worst kind. And we're going to continue to expose it as much as we possibly can. And I'll be praying for that rally in Austin on tomorrow. Grateful for that effort. And I pray that this is something, it has proven, it connects the dots, especially with those students. So pray
I'm
for
just
us.
blessed. Well, thank you, sir. And it's at 201 East Bend White tomorrow, 11 to 2. And absolutely. And thank God Jakari Jackson's parents didn't abort him. What a great human he is, great reporter. He'll be out there leading the whole operation. Jakari Jackson flying back tonight from Cleveland. It's so important, folks, that you understand what's really driving abortion in this country and worldwide. Pastor Cleonard Childress, blackgenocide.org. Thank you so much, and God bless you, sir.
Appreciate you so much. Continue.
Appreciate you, too. He's got a quote in his site, the most dangerous place for an African-American is in the womb. We've had Alex Newman on when he's covering international UN conferences. We've had him on to cover UN operations, the TPP, and more. And we'll hit some of that at the bottom of the hour. But we're really focusing in quite a bit this week on the war on humanity, how we're being socially engineered. We know we're being engineered, and it's not good engineering. It's wrecking ball engineering to get us out of the way, to get us out of the decision-making process, to break up our families. I played a AT&T ad where the dad is a bumbling idiot and the mother watches him with surveillance cameras and automated locks. He's basically a prisoner. And all their ads. We're going to have a special report tomorrow I'm going to go over for the nightly news. I'll air it tomorrow where, I mean, we've got more than 10 ads. I saw 10 up on a screen, and Dew showed me a few of them. Every one of them, the men are bumbling idiots. This is education. This is re-education. Kind of like Hillary's fun camps. I was telling some family this weekend about Hillary giving a speech a few months ago saying we need to send men to fun camps. And they said, she didn't say that, so I pulled the clip up. Yeah, she said that. Crimes of the educators. How utopians are using government schools to destroy America's children. Samuel Blumenfeld and Alex Newman. And Alex Newman writes for thenewamerican.com, excellent magazine, just impeccable research. He is an international journalist, educator, author, and consultant. He writes for a wide array of publications in the United States and abroad, WorldNet Daily, you name it. And he's also a frequent guest here on this broadcast. We've been on 5 or 6 times. And we really appreciate him coming on. We carry this book. So when you purchase it, you fund the InfoWar. You fund a great investigative journalist like Alex Newman, who keeps breaking huge stories and helping fight the globalist. And you get a book that you can donate to your library after you read it or give to the teachers at your local school. Because the average teacher doesn't understand why everything's failing. Well, now they want to corporatize education and bring in, quote, the reform that's just globalist standardized. As bad as the public schools are, there's a larger plan behind that as well. So crimes of the educators. A compelling case that America's public education system must undergo radical change. Ron Paul, former congressman and presidential candidate, had to say that. That's on the cover. So Alex Newman joins us. But before we go any further, obviously, Alex, the propaganda has gone from being a 10 to an 11, to quote Spinal Tap. Well, why don't you just make the whole dial, actually just go up to 10 and it's higher, but it goes to 11. They are at about 110% right now. I think they're overheating. I think it's causing a backlash, and the globalists aren't that stupid. But still, we said the bin Laden raid was fake, and now Cy Hirsch has come out and said a bunch of it's not true, and the CIA has been caught. Zero Dark 30 is, again, total fiction. It's truly over the top, as I said. And now they've just released a bunch of new fake bin Laden documents to counter all that, right as they're trying to reauthorize the Patriot Act. Senator Rand Paul, I'm told, has begun his filibuster. So we'll look into that and monitor that as it unfolds. But Rand Paul filibuster, Patriot Act renewal. This is going on right now. He took the Senate floor to filibuster the renewal of the Patriot Act, a Bush administration error law that enables it. And again, I was just told about this. I knew he was going to filibuster it. Did he already finish? Was it going on and no one covered it, so I didn't know? No, this was just sent out. Okay. He says, I've just taken to the Senate floor to begin a filibuster the Patriot Act renewal. It's time to end the NSA spying. And that was put out just a little while ago. So we have C-SPAN in there in the control room. Let's pipe some of that in here, guys, as quickly as possible. I know it's in the other control room. So we're going to do that. Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to Alex Newman now. Alex, you kind of heard that intro rant there. So much is happening in the world. I want to get into your book, but how it fits into the larger picture. What do you think about just the rollout of, yeah, you're not going to drive your car in the future. We're going to tax you. Yeah, men are bad. Families are bad. World government's good. It just seems to all be over the top now.
No question about it, Alex. And actually, so much of the stuff that you're talking about right now is directly related to what we're covering in the book. NSA spying, to give you an example. The Department of Education now, under the guise of improving education, is actually setting up massive dossiers on every student in the country, in the government schools, including information that parents wouldn't imagine in their wildest dreams. We're talking political beliefs, attitudes, values, views. And, this is going to get even more extreme as they continue rolling out this crazy technology, facial symbol recognition cameras. And this is all being funded by the Department of Education. Then before you were talking about Planned Parenthood and the eugenicists and their role in eugenics. And actually, we have 2 chapters in the book dedicated to the role of eugenicists in dumbing down and really harming the Black community and Black people in this country. And it all kind of ties together. The propaganda is beginning in government schools. Now they're pushing for it earlier and earlier. And the biggest crime that we talk about in the book they're actually preventing children from learning how to read. So you won't even be able to bypass the propaganda and get a book, get a Bible, get the Constitution, get the Declaration of Independence and read it, because they're teaching the children to read using faulty methods that have been known to be quackery since the 1840s when they were developed, this whole word method. They're trying to get rid of phonics completely out of the government schools and replace it with this whole word, look, say, cite method that literally creates a lifelong reading disability in children. Now, before John Dewey had this introduced into all the teaching colleges and then into all the government schools, America was the most literate society on the planet. Even going back to the days of the founding fathers, everybody knew how to read. It was essential because people needed to read their Constitution and their Bible and their history and all of that. And John Dewey, a socialist and a globalist and a humanist, set out to destroy all that for the purpose of transforming America from a free market, capitalist, free constitutional republic into a collectivist utopia. And he said that's what he was doing. So this is a gigantic criminal enterprise masquerading as a government school system, and it's deliberately dumbing down the children. And the numbers show this. The federal government did a literacy survey in 1993. They said 55% of Americans can barely read. This is crazy. My 5-year-old can read after a few weeks of reading lessons using phonics. So something is seriously rotten in the schools, and it all comes together with the globalists and the big government scheming to enslave the American people.
Investigative journalist, educator, Alex Newman joins us. And if you go back to the different banking associations and groups in the 1890s and stuff, I've seen the documents. I've covered them on air. I've seen them in books on education. They were saying, we've got too many smart people. And the robber barons said, we need to take over education and dumb these people down. And boy, have they done it.
No question about it. And if you look at John Dewey, he's the guy we really start the book with. He received millions of dollars from the Rockefeller Philanthropies. This one was called the General Education Board. He got millions of dollars to take over the teaching colleges and to spread this quackery. He outlined his plan to dumb down the nation in an 1898 essay where he said, hey, little kids don't need to know how to read. That's just superfluous stuff. But change has to come gradually, because if parents realize what's going on, there's going to be a violent reaction, and it's going to jeopardize the final success of our scheming here. And
my grandmother was an elementary school teacher and then became the principal of a pretty big country school, and she would pay with her own money and would just bring in the phonics cards and the flashcards and would just tell the teachers, okay, we get this curriculum to get the federal money, but just do this. And they would end up educating them, just sneaking and doing it. And that was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And that's the same as we see today, Alex. Actually, there are plenty of teachers in the system who are very good people who understand what's going on and who are defying the federal government and the Common Core and trying to teach students properly. And what Sam and I argue in this book is that, by and large, teachers are just as much victims of this craziness as the students that are being dumbed down.
Because now they're not over, humans that are excited about learning and know how to read, and now they're dealing with a bunch of spoiled, rotten, drugged up, basically kids behaving like a barrel of monkeys.
And it's all part of the plan. I mean, this has been engineered this way. And another thing we focus on in the book, too, is the role of UNESCO in all of this. So Common Core is not happening in a vacuum. Bill Gates and the globalists financed it, and the Obama administration pushed it onto our states. But, this is happening at the global level.
This is under global treaty, and you're the expert on that. Explain how this is Agenda 21, how it's a UN UNESCO treaty. When we come back, stay there. Alex Newman, the book is excellent, Crimes of the Educators. You want how it really has happened. Very well written, very well documented. InfoWarsStore.com or Amazon.com or other systems. We suggest you get it from us. That funds the entire operation. We're going to go out to break with a minute or two of Rand Paul, the senator, filibustering the reauthorization of the Patriot Act. Notice bin Laden's popped back up like a magic rabbit right on time. And we'll go out with the senator and part of his filibuster. And then we will come back from break, and we will go to our guest. I guess we don't have audio. It's not a big deal. We're going to work, though, I promise everybody. And we moved the new studio a few months ago, and I guess I haven't asked for live feeds in here. It's a TV studio, but we're going to get that set up and do that. Coming up, I promise, ladies and gentlemen. But where does it all begin? I mean, does it go back to Plato's Republic, the dumbing down of the population, or where does it all go back to?
If you look back into ancient history, you've had basically every tyrant in all of history has understood that to control and to enslave a nation, you need to control the education system. And that's one of the things Sam and I did for this book. We looked back at what the Soviets did, what the communists did, what the National Socialists did in Germany. And the pattern is very clear. Tyrants and authoritarians have always understood this. But in the United States, John Dewey was really the key figure here.
All right, stay there. We're going to come back. We're going to get some clips of Rand Paul or play some live clips as well. It's all coming up. Infowars.com, prisonplanet.tv. We're here telling you about the public plan with the documentation to turn us into a bunch of idiots. And now you see what's happening. All robber baron financed. Adolf Hitler, all of it. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show, and Rand Paul is filibustering live. Let's go to that feed via C-SPAN 2.
Of one of the huge social communication companies. And he told me that he thinks that we're missing some of the debate here because he says everybody's talking about bulk collection of your phone records. He's convinced that there's ever so much more being collected through backdoor channels. These backdoor channels can occur in two ways. They can occur one way by going and looking at foreigners' information and then coming through the back door back into our country and looking at Americans' information, but then that American information has tentacles and spreads, and it becomes this enormous grouping of incidental information. In fact, some have said that it's 9 out of 10 pieces of data pulled in aren't about a terrorist, they're just incidental stuff. What the President's Review Commission said is we should delete that once we find it's not relevant to an investigation.
All right. We'll have highlights of it. Mikhail Phelan's in there watching. We'll come back to more in the next segment. But listening to this, the NSA was doing what they're telling you about in the 70s. Samsung and everybody else is on record in their terms of service saying we're watching and listening to you and selling it for third-party marketing, so watch what you say. Google 10 years ago, hard to believe it was 2005, came out and said to shareholders, hey, we're listening to people, and if we hear a dog barking, we send dog food ads to the computer. And we sell the data that there's a dog, to dog food companies was the example. So let's get that straight. Imagine if he was up there holding up Samsung's terms of service. And I'm not picking on the South Korean company. It's a bunch of them. But they had the nerve to say, watch what you say. So see, it's light years, it's 1 trillion miles worse than what they're telling you. And even when stuff is out in the open, it's so over the top. I don't know what you call that phenomenon. It's so big, people can't see it. It's like saying, do you see the sky? It's like, no, because the whole thing's the sky. Do you see the whole sky? No, you can't even take in the whole sky. It's too big. I see part of it. I can't. The only way to see the whole sky is to pull back, see the whole planet, but then you only see part of the planet. See, I'm trying to get people to think here and understand how far down the rabbit hole we are. I mean, they're now talking about forced inoculation, saying your kids don't belong to you. They're coming. Alex Newman, investigative journalist, educator, expert on the globalists. You were getting into the treaty, the UN UNESCO treaties, how they set our education. That's why they're getting rid of the borders right now. That's in treaties. The TPP, it's why they're putting in the internet kill switch and all this. That's why the FCC just power grabbed. They're all in line with global treaties. So we're going to break in 3-4 minutes. I want to give you the floor right now to talk about that history, where we're going. But in fact, let's do that in the next segment. Let me ask you this. Where is it all going? I mean, I've got a good idea. You've studied it. What is their master plan, and how is it going for them?
The amazing thing is that we don't even have to speculate. They tell us up front what they're doing. They tell us they're creating a global government, a global society, a single world religion, basically globalist everything on steroids. And really what they're talking about is planetary totalitarianism. And they use nice words and that kind of stuff, but they're very upfront about what they're doing. Now, the media won't report it, but one of the things we did for the book was just spent hours and days and weeks looking at primary source documents from the United Nations, from John Dewey, from UNESCO, from the Common Core people, from Bill Gates. And it's so clear where they're going with all of this. It's a global totalitarian system, and it ensnares everything. But education is really at the heart of it, because if you don't have a dumbed down population, if you don't have a population that's sufficiently indoctrinated into this nonsense, it'll never fly. And so education, we consider, is really at the heart of this globalist effort to really, just to be blunt about it, enslave the world. Without the education system, it would never be possible. Without mass-producing illiterates and collectivists, they could never build something like this. But their goal is very, very clear. The globalists themselves call it a new world order. It's not a descriptive term, but it is what they're building. It's a global totalitarian system. And they're almost ripping off the mask at this point. They think they're so far along on the road to this that there's no more back.
And when I've talked to top globalists, off record, obviously, some of them on record, they explain, Alex, the fact that you can see it means you ought to just join us. The public would tear you apart. And they're so illiterate, we just set it up for them to fail. They did the rest. The fact that we're in control says that we should be in control. And they start quoting social Darwinistic screeds. But when you talk about it, they mass produce collectivist illiterates that are arrogant and evil and are globalists themselves, spouting slogans so you can't help but hate them, even though they're mental midgets. And then you catch yourself in a globalist perspective of them, because the hordes of these minions are dangerous, and then you're almost forced into the arms of the globalist. But I won't do that. We'll be back. We'll talk about this paradox. Stay with us. We're going to go back to a little bit more of Senator Rand Paul. He was saying some really good stuff during the break. We've got it in the studio via C-SPAN in there. He was talking about the fact that we gave medals to the NSA and others who supposedly missed 9/11. But the truth is, the communiques came through and they bare minimum stood down. And then he broke down how they've basically scrapped the entire Constitution and Bill of Rights, and how when he talks to the veterans who've been wounded, they say they did it for the Bill of Rights and Constitution and they want the Republic restored. I mean, it's good. You should see all the senators up there giving speeches against it. But instead, they lie and say, oh, it's just for Al-Qaeda. No, that's all a fraud. Our government is protecting Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and that's a fact. And all they're doing, if you look at a map of Iraq, then I've got some huge breaking gun news. Alert, alert. If you look at Ramadi that got taken over, you can notice that right next door is Syria. And so you've got part of Syria that's been taken over by the rebels. And then you've got into here part of Iraq, and that borders, what is that border? Borders Saudi Arabia, and its huge porous border with Iraq that is openly arming ISIS, that just flies the Saudi Wahhabist flag. And then they, in turn, attack Syria and are creating Islamic State, IS, out of part of Iraq and Syria, which has been the Pentagon plan from the beginning since 1991, was to weaken the state and then finally break it up with Kurds in the north, 3 parts, Al-Qaeda, Wahhabist, Sunnis, and then Shiites in the southeast. And Saudi Arabia basically ends up taking over this whole swath in the far south, right up into the southwest. And here's the new Islamic State. In fact, if you're a TV viewer, I'll just color it in. Islamic State's basically this whole area in yellow. And there's your new country, right into Syria. And then you've got the other states to the north and to the east. And it's a proxy war, and that's why they're saying, oh, we can't go fight them. But when they get outside the lines, when they come out of the areas where the cancer is supposed to stop, then the U.S. military will attack them when they go into the north, because they don't totally control them. They just turn them loose. When they go into the north, like Cookie Monster killing people, and I say that because he's like throwing cookies in his mouth going, oh, Cookie, just killing everybody. It's like a devilish Cookie Monster. And then if they get over here into the Shiites, Iran-backed, they'll kick them out. So they just get this whole area and they get to take over Syria and murder everybody. And then they'll be given part of Syria later, and the UN will make the other part. And the tourist area is a UN zone. It'll be a UN-held snack for the UN. So the UN gets a piece of the pie along with NATO to run drugs and control the oil and the pipelines there in the Mediterranean. They kick the Russians out. So they get that coastal area over here. So the UN, the globalists, get this area. And Saudi Arabia gets a piece of Iraq and of Syria. And again, the Kurds get their little goodie area, and then the Iran gets their little area. All right, let's go back to our guest, Alex Newman. Before we do that, let's get a minute or two more of Senator Rand Paul and his filibuster. Let's see if he's saying anything of import now.
Give up who we are in the process? Has it been worth it? Are you really willing to give up your liberty for security? What if the security you're getting is not even real? They said the 52 people they caught through the bulk collection program, the president's privacy, his own privacy group investigated and said not one person was captured. A possibility of one, but they already had information on him from some other source.
All right, that's enough. And what he's getting at there is, look at how Hillary had this other server and these other emails to do official business. And then, of course, all these other intelligence agencies had the information. And she just didn't care. Hell, they're giving China nuclear reactor technology to perfect their subs now. I mean, it's just total sell the country out, and that's globalism. Alex Newman has written an amazing book available at InfoWarsStore.com, Crimes of the Educators. He's going to get more into the history of it, more into where all this is going today, to understand Common Core, to understand 2 + 2 = 5. You must first understand where it all came from. We'll talk to him in a moment. Also, briefly, we're running a special through Sunday. We always have some special or not going, so it's important to listen for the specials that are on items you want. We've got 20% off Super Male and Super Female Vitality. That's got 4 days, 10 hours, and 21 minutes left. 20% off. We've got the new Prostagard that is the best prostate formula out there, bar none, at half the price of leading competitors. We've got the Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. We have just other amazing products at InfoWarsLife.com. Winter Sun, Secret 12, X2, Lung Cleanse, Colloidal Silver, Silver Bullet. We've got high-quality water filters that are gravity-fed, cut out the fluoride and glyphosates and hundreds of other chemicals. They blow away the competition in side-by-side lab test. We have all of that available at InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. We have really high-quality Wake Up America coffee that comes from southern Mexico and Chiapas. It's organic. It's my favorite type of coffee. It's one of the few things not made in America there on the site in that section, but it is America at the end of the day. So I'm all about giving those poor farmers jobs down there. So InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. But as hot as Common Core is, and as people are waking up to it, now is the time to get books like Crimes of the Educators. And then just do your own YouTube or do your own Access show. I mean, become a leader, or go donate it to the local library or donate to your local school. Believe me, it'll get passed around. It'll get read. And this is how we're going to win wars. Why are we at the trail behind every other industrialized nation in scores? Why do we have a decline in the power of reasoning and logic? Why is there increased death and suicide? Why is there a war on biblical religion and morality? And all the phony reforms. All right, you've got the floor pretty much for the balance of the transmission. I also want to get your take on this huge breaking news. House Democrat introduces gun registry bill. You notice the Democrats walk in lockstep like a cult. So this is ordered. Bill allows Justice Department to gather personal information on gun buyers and vendors outside of the Brady bill and to confiscate them. Representative Carol Maloney has spewed out a bunch of baloney, introducing a bill that would effectively create a firearms registry by forcing private sellers at gun shows to report sales to the Attorney General and by requiring gun show organizers to register with the Justice Department. And that means you can't give a gun to your son or daughter either, or vice versa. The bill, H.R. 2380, would also force gun organizers to provide the identities of all their vendors to the Attorney General. You like that? The legislation would call on the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives to hire investigators to inspect gun shows and examine records kept by gun show operators and vendors. So it's a bunch of money to fund the harassment of gun shows that's already going on and to end private sales. It's an end of private sales or transfers and basically creates a new FFL for anybody selling guns. It co-ops you into their 1968 Gun Control Act. It's a total nightmare. Infowars.com, prisonplanet.com. Okay, Alex, a lot of breaking news today. Appreciate you holding while we go over this. We're monitoring Senator Paul's filibuster. Please continue breaking down. Start at the beginning, go through it, and where we currently are. It's just so premeditated.
Absolutely, it is, Alex. Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for everything that you do. Basically, what we think we've done with this book here is a tool to blow up the globalist scheme. If this information were more widely known, the entire edifice would collapse because all of it rests on a dumbed-down public that can't read well, that can't do math, that can't understand anything. That
It's
doesn't
pretty
have any
much a
moral.
confession. I mean, it's all their own criminal admission. Sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly it. What we did was we used primary sources because we didn't want to deal with our opinion or anything like that. What we did was we looked at the primary documents, the writings of John Dewey, the UNESCO manuals on how you need to teach children pornographic sex education starting at 5 years old, how you need to teach kids all over the world using the whole word method, which we know, again, doesn't work, causes actual physical brain damage. And we can show this now with modern brain scans. You can take a look at the brain of a child who has been educated with this quackery known as whole word, and you can show that there's real brain damage there. The connections between the two sides of the brain are not working properly. A kid who learned how to read using phonics will not have that problem. Will be able to read anything. And so the real goal here, and we show this again using their own words, it all comes to Agenda 21 and UNESCO and creating this new world order that they call it. And actually the globalists are meeting right now at the UN Summit for Education in Korea, where they're openly telling you education is going to be a tool to create global citizens, green global citizens. And Arnie Duncan uses the same rhetoric as well. He gave a speech to UNESCO where he them about how the federal government was using the schools to turn Americans into green global citizens ready for their green jobs in the green world order. And UNESCO, he called them his global partner in all of this. And Bill Gates, the primary financier of Common Core, signed a deal with UNESCO in 2004 to develop globalized education. And it all converges at this point where humanity is totally dumbed down, totally ignorant, and very easy to control, very easy to enslave, and they can't even acquire information and knowledge independently because.
And then we're just orderly euthanized by the big Watson computers, just like the veterans are now on these don't treat lists, and it's just a formality. I mean, you can see it. It's all written. It's a plan. What is it like? Are you a parent?
I am, yep.
I mean, I've had children. I plan to have more children. I'm going to, as I've said, double down, bet on life, be fully committed. I'm not going to give up. My ancestors didn't. They faced amazing adversity, but they could see the adversity and deal with it. The problem is this velvet tyranny that's so creeping and wicked and sneaky and encompassing. How do you get people already in a trance who are as blind and deaf to this as Helen Keller at first to come out of their shell and realize that you're not attacking them, trying to explain that they've been caught in a trap. You're trying to help them. Because once you realize what's really going on, it's epic. I mean, I use that word because it is. It's epic, 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 wild. I'm in a fantastic dystopian movie, but it's also utopian, and there's so much good stuff. It's not one way or the other. There's these despots that want to crap all everything. I'm sorry, that's what they're doing. And then there's people who want humanity to thrive and who love humanity. And we're just in this death battle with these people. I wish folks realize, people ask how I have so much energy. I mean, when you really read their documents and read your book, and it's just, they're so bad. And they're so creepy. And they're going to take our cars away where we can't even drive them. They're going to have forced abortion in the country under Obamacare with regulations, just like China. People say, oh, that won't happen. Yeah, and everything else wasn't going to happen either. It's all going to happen unless we start saying no. So what do we do to stop it? Where do you see all this going?
You're absolutely right, Alex. And I think, you made some key points there about waking people up. I think the facts, if people would read this book with an open mind, again, they can go to the bibliography, they can read the primary source documents themselves. And they've told us where this is all going. UNESCO, for example, several decades ago, developed what they call the World Core Curriculum. This was developed by Robert Mueller, a disciple of Alice Bailey, the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company, who would invite these ascended master spirit.
Can't make that up. Open Luciferians. The UN's dedicated to them. They have a Lucifer chapel at the New York UN. I've been inside of it. Again, you can't even make this stuff up.
That's exactly right. And I mean, if people read Alice Bailey's book, she had an Education for the New Age, for example. She tells you we need to beat individualism out of the children. We need to crush biblical religion so we can move toward this one world, wonderful religion where the UN is going to dictate everything.
We must move away from the archaic, barbaric family structure.
Exactly. And I mean, this has been clear from the very beginning of UNESCO. Julian Huxley, the first boss of UNESCO, explained the purpose of UNESCO is to seize control of education, create a world humanist religious society where we're all going to serve this world government. And, they couldn't be more clear about it. And Bill Gates is on board. He's one of the primary financiers of things like the UN Population Fund that participates in forced abortions in China. This is all on the congressional record. Also a big financier of Planned Parenthood. And again, this comes back to the eugenicists, too. We have 2 chapters about how the eugenicists deliberately targeted blacks to dumb them down, even more so than the rest of the population. And of course, the whole population has been dumbed down.
Sure, blacks were the test subject. They were the guinea pigs, and look what they've done to them.
Exactly. And, we can see the fruits of this craziness all around us. Our society is falling apart. Government is out of control. We have abortions and shootings and murders. And the globalists openly telling us we're moving toward a world government, whether we like it or not. And the only way to stop this is for people to get educated about the problem so that we can fix the problem. And people need to realize that this is not some kind of big national accident. A criminal group of educators backed by the Rockefellers, led by John Dewey, who went to the Soviet Union to study the Soviet schools and how they were mass-producing atheists and collectivists. These people set out with an agenda to dumb down the American people, strip us of our liberties. And we're now coming to the final phases of that.
Well, I don't want to romanticize Vladimir Putin because I trust him about as far as I could throw him. But they are getting together literal youth camps to get 18-year-olds to get married and have kids. They talk about eugenics. His best buddy has a TV show on national state-run TV. Sounds like me. They're telling the truth. I think they went through all that hell. They never really actually fell. But I really think Alexander Solzhenitsyn and others had a big effect on them. I know Putin said he was a fan of Solzhenitsyn, met with him a lot before he died. I know liberty, once you've gone into total tyranny, will become very alluring again. And so I know that we can reach out to people in the elite. But when we see Russia going in the opposite of where we're going, we know we're in trouble.
No kidding. And, I went to the first Global Home Education Conference in Berlin in 2012. And there was a lot of Russians there, and they told me that homeschooling is totally free and wide open in Russia. That was amazing for me because, like you said, I wouldn't trust Putin as far as I could throw him. But you got to judge the tree by its fruits. He's promoting homeschooling. Yep. And
he's promoting masculine men, and men should be tough, and like John Wayne. I mean, it's the opposite. Men are good role models, and fathers are good. I mean, it's...
Yeah, and in the United States, we're moving toward crushing homeschooling. The government is becoming extremely hostile, and the talking heads, on MSNBC telling us that the children belong to the community, and Hillary Clinton with her village to raise a child. Homeschooling is one of the best options that parents could possibly seize upon right now. You need to get your kids out of the government school. You need to teach them to read using phonics. You need to teach them real history. You need to teach them the facts, and that's how we're going to stop this criminal enterprise.
Amazing. Alex Newman, the book, Crimes of the Educators at InfoWarsStore.com. Folks, Osama bin Laden died in 2002 of kidney failure. We broke it down. We predicted he'd be on ice, rolled out later. They've now admitted the official story's not true. Most of it isn't. No, it was a body double. I've talked to Navy SEALs. I'm on record when this first got announced, when they blew up their helicopter. And I'm just insulted that I wasn't put in bin Laden's fake reading list. This is clearly to demonize books they don't like. Though I did republish and reprint Bloodlines of the Illuminati for Fritz Springmeier, so I'm proud of that. The Best Democracy Money Can Buy by Greg Palast, frequent guest. The Best Enemy Money Can Buy by Anthony Sutton, the congressional investigator, how we funded Hitler and Stalin. Black Box Voting with Bev Harris. It's just a list of our guests. Bloodlines, the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins, regular guest. Conspirators Hierarchy, the Committee of 300 by John Coleman. He's former MI6. Is Coleman still around? I wanted to get him on. Imperial Hubris. We've had that guest on. Project MK Ultra, the CIA's Research Behavioral Modification Program, the actual document. That's from the Church Committee. The New Pearl Harbor, Disturbing Questions About the Bush Administration, 9/11 by David Ray Griffin. Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. He's been a guest before he died. David Ray Griffin's been, this is our guest. Where am I in here? Usually when there's some cop killer, they say they did it for me, and then we learn the person was, coming after me or wanted to kill me or hated me. This is just so, or maybe the body double was reading this in his house arrest, because it was a body double. Half mile or less from the biggest military base in the country. Going back to Alex Newman. Alex, just crazy times going on. How do you think things are going for the elite? They've dumbed down a lot of people, but a lot of people are awake. A lot of governments are awake. A lot of individuals are awake. The government's, cutting fluoride out of the water now, admitting it hurts people. Glyphosate's in trouble. A lot of good stuff's happening. The UN's discredited. The Federal Reserve's in trouble. I don't see things being a bed of roses or a carpet of rose petals for the globalists. What do you see happening? They're having some big wins as well. If this was a football game, what's the score?
No, that's a good question. I think from what's going on, the globalists are accelerating their plan. And my inference from this is that they're getting nervous. They know that they got to get this all done as quickly as possible because people are waking up right and left by the millions. And once we reach a critical mass of people who are awake, this whole thing is going to come crashing down. They're going to end up in prison. And, that's serious stuff. So it looks to me like they're really dramatically accelerating their plans. If you watch, the mainstream media, it's almost pathetic. They're there blabbering and telling lies, and they know everybody watching understands that it's a lie, but they keep spewing it as if, we didn't understand and they didn't understand that we understand. So I think they're getting nervous. I think that's why we're seeing
That's right. They're just pretending so they get their paycheck, hoping Sumner Redstone, who goes around in public with his two hot young girlfriends, 90-something years old, totally evil, they're just telling the old man everything's fine, basically.
Yeah, it's what it seems like. And I think as we move closer to them just totally ripping off the mask, more and more people are going to be waking up. So it's important that people have the facts, that people be educated, that people be organized in their communities, because we're going to have a great opportunity here to put a stop to all this. And if we miss it, it's going to be a disaster for humanity. But if we seize it, it would be, absolutely wonderful and amazing. So we need to be educating ourselves. We need to be praying, and we need to know the facts so that we can educate others, and so that when the opportunity presents itself, as we get closer, as more and more people wake up, we can put our foot down and say, enough of this. We're going to keep our rights. We're going to keep our nation. Thank you very much. We're going to educate our children. We're not going to let you dumb them down. And, we're not going to have your new world order. Take a hike. You're a criminal. That's enough.
Well, I got to salute you for the work you've done. Crimes of the Educators, Samuel Blumenfeld and Alex Newman, available at InfoWarsStore.com. I've only read part of the book, and basically everything in it is documented. I've learned a lot of new stuff. It's key to get out. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes of Overdrive and finish some news. Again, folks, this is a huge time to be alive. This is not a game. This is a great time to shine. This is God testing us. Great job, crew. People love to spend money buying thriller books and whodunits and science fiction books. And that's fine. I've read a lot of that stuff myself. But when I was a child, I began reading history books and research books and just adult publications because they were so much more interesting. Reality was so much more interesting. But when you read a book like Crimes of the Educators that I've only gotten 20 pages into, and you're reading quotes by the globalists and copies of documents where they said it about how they want to kill us and our families, but first dumb us down and suck everything off of us and build a technocratic utopia on our bones. Do people take this personal? I know I do. I guess a lot of people just want to socially climb, and they'll do anything to join these people. course, that's why you've not been asked to join them. I mean, they certainly don't want you. And that's what's sick about this, and I didn't finish that up with Newman, talking to him earlier, is that when I've been on the phone with the head of the Kissinger Group, and that's one people I can mention the name. I've talked to people more high level than Rothkopf. He's like the minion of Kissinger. When you're around these people, major bank head, you name it, people I've run into, they will just tell me one of two things. They'll either say, listen, I'm in this too deep. I can't get out. It's worse than you think. You're dead on. You're going to be getting very, very famous. Let me just tell you, get ready. It's going to be wild. And just keep doing what you're doing because you are dead on. I'm getting out of the country. Bye-bye. They either tell you that. First they say, I got your word. This is off record because I follow the show and I know you don't burn people. And that's your currency, is that you don't. Yes, of course, I'm not going to tell anybody unless you tell me you got kids locked up in a basement. Then I'll have to. Something prima facie illegal. I tell people, you tell me something illegal, that you're brewing methamphetamine. I don't think you're actually cooking methamphetamine. This is a speech I give. You're somebody trying to set me up, bringing me into a crime. So anything illegal where you're committing the crime, don't tell me about it. But if you want to just give me general information or whatever, that's, please, and don't give me any classified documents. So that I'm trying to set me up with that. And they're like, yes, of course. But then most of the time, they're not scared or freaked out and saying they don't want to be part of it. They're just like, oh, you're really a piece of work. You probably could have done pretty good working with us, but you just don't understand these people. You don't understand how stupid they are, how weak they are, that no amount of help's ever going to get through to them. Look at how you futilely sit there and warn them all day, and they hate your guts. We could buy them off for pennies. They're going to evolve, but not in the way you think. You think of adaptation as resisting, adapting, overcoming, like the Marines say. That's not how it works, Alex. They're going to adapt to being slaves. And the future is in the hands of the people that rightfully should have control. Really? So you put fluoride in the water to make everybody mildly retarded so you can be the king of planet low IQ? I mean, boy, you're real gods. Let me tell you, you're really powerful. That a bunch of robber barons that got rich off the wealth of the West set up a long-term strategic plan to take over the universities and higher learning and corporations to then build this, and then you took all the human invention and squirreled it away for yourselves and twisted it and perverted everything, and then you sit there and say what you've done is so powerful? I mean, I guess it is. Like, it takes powerful will to grab kids off the street and torture them for a month and then kill them while they beg for mommy. I mean, I guess that is powerful in a way, sickening and degenerate and horrible. I mean, okay, you are powerful. Like a stinking dead animal has a powerful stench. You are powerful. And you have us on our knees, okay? Great. I'm going to tell you this. You'll never escape what you've done. I know the higher level ones know that and just get off on it. You're turned over to your father, the devil. But the good people are waking up, and with God's help, you will be brought to justice, and we will survive. We will defeat you.
Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by real FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. People are suffering from all kinds of digestive issues these days. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. My main focus was to come up with a remedy for this, something that's safe and effective that anyone can take on a regular basis to keep their intestinal lining clean. My recommendation is to clean your intestines at least 2 to 3 times a week to prevent the toxic buildup from going into your bloodstream. Take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com. NSASpying.com.